So for the illustration of if-else, I
Yes.
think we've kind of run to the end of the road of what's easy to do in idle.
Yeah, we'll have to show this one in Eclipse.
Let's show this one in
Okay.
Eclipse.
So if you open Eclipse, and I can just open a new PyDev module. Name it Conditions.
So basically, while Patrice is getting that set up, this code now is kind of doing a lot more, and the if-else code is going to do that too. So it's going to be a lot easier to illustrate that using Eclipse. So.
Okay, yes. So I'm going to say if x is less than 0, print this value is negative, and also print I kind of want to change it to 0.
So basically, we're showing that with your if statement, you can have multiple lines of code. So this is just going to print 2 statements.
And then here you'll say, now is where you include your else statement. So else.
So this is a different line of code.
Yes. Print more.
Why print more? Maybe let's say it's more than 0. Just say more than 0. So just a different string.
Yes.
Happens.
So it says if your x value is less than 0, print x is negative, and I kind of want to change it to 0. Else print more than 0.
And so do we need to set x to
so
something
we're gonna
beforehand?
Here, that's the good thing about Eclipse is you can edit it.
Yeah.
So you can go back and say x equal, I'm going to do 10.
All right.
So you can test that. Just click enter and print x.
So it'll print one of these statements, strings, and print whatever the value of x is.
Yes.
At the end.
So
So run code.
it's running.
It's
and it says more than 0 because
it's 10.
x is 10.
So let's change x.
Let's change x to a negative value.
Sure.
Let's say -3. And run that. And it says the x is negative. I kind of want to change it to 0.
And it shows us it's still
shows you
-3.
-3, yes.
So we could actually change x to 0 here. We could add a third line.
Yes.
Do you want to do that really quick?
You wanna
Just set x to 0 if x is less than 0.
On the a third line here.
Yeah. So just x equals 0, right?
X equal 0.
So we can run this again, but now it's going to report x as 0 instead of -3 if we did this code right.
Oh,
there we
perfect.
go.
Yep.
So x started at -3, if we can point at that.
Yes.
And we said if it's less than 0, print these things and make it 0. Otherwise, print more than 0, and so we printed
print
x.
You get that. Perfect.
Fabulous job, Patrice.
Thank you. So now let's go back to the presentation. And so after we learn about if-else statement, the next value we need to learn about is an if-else statement. And this is many possible solutions with many possible conditions. So you have one condition here. If that condition is true, you run statement 1. If it's false, you check the second condition. If that's true, you run statement 2. If that's false, you keep checking. So you can have an indefinite amount of conditions and solutions and statements.
Cool. So if we go back to the example we were just working on in Eclipse, can we just add another if, or is it another else?
You have to do else. So it'll be else if.
Oh, okay.
So like the way it went, it says if, else, else.
Okay.
So here.
Oh, because we're adding another condition.
Yes. So and in Python, you don't say else if, you just put elif.
Aha.
ELIF. That's how you say else if in Python. So you can say else if.
And then you have to put a condition. Right
Yes.
here.
So you enter else if x is, let's make it equal to 0. Print x is 0. X is 0.
Does this x equals 0 need to be up here, kind of like the if statement? Or does it go where you have it? And then put the colon there.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
So else if x is 0, print x is 0. Else So when you have an else if statement, it has to end with an else statement.
Okay.
So that's how whenever you're coding in Python and you have an else if the last code is else if, then you're not done because you have to finish with an else statement.
Okay, so else.
So else print.
Let's run it with
So
x
now-
equals -3.
If we print
Oh, print x.
x and run it,
Okay.
it says x value is negative. I kind of want to change it to 0.
So
If we change it to 0 and run, it says x is 0.
And if we change it to
Change it to
7
yes. Let's do 7. Lucky number 7.
and then run it.
Oh, of course. It says x is greater than 0.
Okay, cool. And so we could have done else if, like, else if x is equal to 0, else if x is greater than 1, else if, or it wouldn't be greater than 1.
You could say else if x is 1 or else if x is 2. Or
Okay.
So you can do all the way up to 10.
Cool.
So from negative to 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5.
Or whatever
Yes.
you need to do.
Or whatever condition you need, yes.
So let's go back to the presentation and continue with the other things we need to talk about today. So we've talked about if statements, if else, and then if else, if else.
Yes. So it's if else statement.
If else, if.
Remember,
else.
it ends in an else. If it's not else, you're not done.
Okay.
Okay. So now we've learned that. Now we need to learn about Boolean values.
Yeah.
So a Boolean value, like we said at the beginning of the presentation, is just true or false. That's it. On or off, 1 or 0. So in Python, we say true or false, and we use lowercase true and false. In other languages, we use 1s and 0s, 1 being true, 0 being false. And AJ came up with a great illustration that's like a light. It's either on or off.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So if the light's on, true. If the light's off, false.
False, exactly. Now, Boolean algebra
Mhm.
determines a single true or false value based on multiple values. So if you have 2 values and you want to see if you want to decide if that the single value within those 2 values is true or false. So for example, you say and.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have one value that's true and one value that's false, and would not work. So and has to have both values be true
In order
or
for the
the single Boolean value to be true.
Okay, so that's
And-
how and works. Both have to be true.
Yes. The way or works, only one of them has to be true, and not just means the opposite of whatever it is.
So that just takes a single value and reverses it.
Yes.
So if you have not for a value and it was true, now it's false.
Yes.
If it was false, now it's true.
Exactly, and we can illustrate this in idle.
Yeah, I think you said idle would work.
Yes. So if you guys want to open up idle, like AJ said, on the side of your page, we have some examples of Boolean values here. So the first one we're going to test is the not value. So if you say not true and enter, that's false. So
False.
it prints out the opposite of what you printed out. If you say not false, enter, it prints out true.
True.
But now for an or value, if you say true or false,
It'll be true, I think.
it'll be true because one of them is true.
And the same would be true if you said false or true.
Or true,
But if you
exactly.
said false or false,
Yes.
it would be false.
Yeah, so we can test that. Let's say false or false, and it's false.
And what about true or true? That would still
True
be
or true would be true because they're both true.
Okay. And then
That's true. So now we can
there's
test an and.
and.
And for an and, they both have to be true to get a return of true. So if you have true and false,
That would be false.
you return false. If you have false and false, it returns false. But if you
Stays
have
false.
true and true, that's the only way you can return true is you have true and true.
So for an or, the only way to get false is for both of them to be false.
Yes.
For and, the only way to get true
It's
is
for
for
both of them to be true. Perfect. That's a very good example.
Awesome. So what else do we need to know now
Let's
about
go
this?
to the presentation.
So yeah, let's wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see if I learned everything I needed to learn today, Patrice.
Yes.
Oh. So basically code runs by it going through each step of your code, all the lines. We talked about conditionals. That's when we come up to a fork in the road and we have to decide what code to run, if any. We went through conditional statements. There was the if that would have an
One
alternative,
condition.
an alternative code, otherwise no code,
Exactly.
or whatever's next. If else, it gives us two blocks of code. Either it's true and then we run the code of the if, and then if it's not true, then we run the code of the else.
Yes.
And then if else if, we can do this before the battery's dead, allows us to have multiple
Conditions
points,
with
multiple
multiple
conditions
statements.
with multiple statements, so
Yes.
multiple blocks of code.
Yes.
And then we talked about Boolean value, which is really simple. It's just true or false. And then we just talked about Boolean algebra. Now, the reason we need Boolean algebra is so that we can complicate those conditions.
Yes.
So if we have two running variables and we want to know, okay, at this point, is this true of this variable and that's true of that variable,
Yes.
then run this code.
Yes.
And we can combine the conditional statements with the Boolean algebra.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, it's been great to have you here today teaching us about this. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.